Shields and swords, field of wars, fighting my blood down to the core. Warriors from medieval age, fear the reign of night brigades. Crusades into the room, moving through the temples and tombs. Scared and placed, prepare to face Professor Awesome and the minions of doom. 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 Professor Awesome and the minions of doom.
So, Francis Bacon is often considered one of the, maybe the father of modern scientific philosophy. And there are lots of reasons for that, but one thing that he does that's really important is develop an idea of how reason should work, and he categorizes 4 different logical fallacies. Now, he calls them the idols of the mind. Now, there are lots and lots of logical fallacies, dozens at least. I would guess if you are careful, you can probably track out hundreds of them. There's the ad hominem fallacy, which is when you attack an idea by attacking the person who gives it. There's the bandwagon fallacy, where you say, well, everyone believes it, so it must be true. There's post hoc reasoning, where you start with the conclusion, then you reason your way to there. There are many, many ones. There's even one, my favorite, the fallacy, which says that just because you arrive at a conclusion because it is a logical fallacy, through a logical fallacy, doesn't mean the conclusion's wrong. It just means that the way you got there was wrong. So there are many kinds of logical fallacies. And so these idols of the mind that Francis Bacon talks about shouldn't be considered the only logical fallacies, but there are 4 big categories that really help us think about reason and the way that reason works. And let's start with just him calling them the idols of the mind. Idols in this case are false gods, and there's a sense in which, if you see the lectures I have on truth, he equates truth in a way with God, that when Jesus says, I am the way, the truth, and the light, this idea that God is literally the truth is one that Bacon takes very seriously. So when he thinks of idols of the mind, false reasoning takes you away from God, both figuratively and in some ways literally. So he divides this into 4 categories. The first one is idols of the tribe. And I think idols of the tribe, sometimes I'll see students who cite online sources where I think it's a little bit misunderstood. And I think in order to understand these 4, you should understand the metaphors. Just like there's the metaphor of the idol, that is the false god. What is it about the tribe? Well, the tribe is the thing that everyone knows, that everyone believes. It's our tribe. My favorite representation of idols of the tribe are the Dothraki from the Game of Thrones books and later television series, where when they're challenged on an idea, why do you think that? Their answer is, it is known. It's just everyone knows. I had a family member who used to justify things when she would say something. She'd say, well, that's what they say. Who are they? Who's the they who say this? And there's this idea that the tribe, you are accepting the sort of the general perceptions of humanity. This is the way humanity perceives things. And we all know that we perceive things wrong often, not as individuals, but as a group. So to be clear, first, the idea of the idols of the idol of the tribe is group, like human understanding of things, that it's flawed, and we need to accept that from the beginning. This and the second one, I think, really occupy a pair, and this is the idol of the cave. And if you know Plato's allegory of the cave, then you know the metaphor. The idea of the allegory of the cave is he thinks of the philosopher as someone who, like, we're all in a cave and we don't see the outside world. All we can see is shadows from the outside world cast upon the wall of the cave. And so we're trying to make out the exterior world through the shadows. And the philosopher is the one who sees the exterior world, right? And can tell us about it in some ways. And in here, the idea is that it's not that what you're saying in the cave is exactly false, but that it is really only through your own perception. And so where the idol of the tribe has to do with everyone, all humanity or your group really thinking this way. This has to do with your own personal perception. And again, we all have experienced times when we saw something from a perspective, maybe literally saw it, maybe just perceived it in a way. And then later we understood it very differently because of a change in the way that we personally saw something. When someone tries to justify something and say, well, that's just my opinion, as if that justifies it. In fact, when you say that's just my opinion, it really, from Bacon's perspective, invalidates what you're saying. It doesn't justify it. It shows, well, that you need to shut up and come up with a reason that's better than just your opinion for this thing. So the idol of the tribe and the idol of the cave. Idol of the tribe is sort of the group, whether it's humanity or our social group. Idol of the cave is just me as the individual, not being able to trust my own perception. And I think these two together create a kind of sense that we should be modest in our understanding of our own judgments, whether the judgments of our groups or the judgments of ourselves as individuals. The author Chuck Klosterman has a book called "But What If We're Wrong," in which he points out that almost every sort of major idea that people have held through time has been shown to be either in part or in the whole wrong. And that because of that, we should know with great certainty that not just some, but some of our most cherished, some of our central, some of our most important beliefs are completely false. The problem is we can't know which ones those are. So because of that, we should be modest in our claims of certainty. Well, it's interesting that he interviews a lot of people in there who push back on that, and they say, no, we know this is true, we know this is wrong. And those are the people who, although maybe today or at the time that Klosterman wrote his book, those people are celebrated for their knowledge and their ability to communicate ideas, are likely in the long run to be shown to be the biggest fools. Maybe they'll be right, but probably not. And Bacon would suggest that they're not, or they're probably not. So I think those two kind of form a cadre, a couple. The next one is the idol of the marketplace, and this is every English major's favorite one. The idea of the marketplace is the idea of exchanging things. This idea of I give you, consider money, right? If I give you something, you have to accept that money is of the same value as I'm offering it. If I give you $20, you need to accept the value of $20 is what I think the value of $20 is. And so like if I'm giving you money and it's a different kind of currency, then it will be confusing, right? And I know the marketplace has to do with the exchange not of money, but the exchange of words to express ideas. So sometimes when we're talking about two different things, or when we're talking about something, maybe you've been in an argument with someone where it started and you thought, how could you believe that? And you get back and forth and you're arguing with them. At some point, and the argument's getting heated, and at some point you realize, oh no, wait, we agree. You were just using a term differently than I was using it. And so either you misinterpreted what I meant because you misunderstood my idea, or I misunderstood what you meant. And these are the idols of the marketplace, where we reason badly because we haven't thought clearly about what the terms mean. So, for example, a few years ago, and maybe it's come back now, there was a big debate over healthcare in the United States, and you would hear people say two different things, and for the average person, it was maybe hard to understand that when someone said health insurance, they meant something different than health coverage. And when someone said health coverage, they meant something different than health insurance. Those two terms sound synonymous, but they're really very different ideas. And so because of that, you would maybe hear someone say something, and then I'd see on social media or someone respond, say, that person's a liar. That's not true. Here's a statistic, and they'd pull up some study, but the study was talking about the other thing, not the thing that they intended to talk about. And so we see these kinds of idols in the marketplace all the time. Sometimes people will do intentionally deceptive things. So one of my favorite examples is you'll sometimes see a food advertised as sugar-free. And by sugar-free, they mean refined sugar. They don't mean no sucrose, glucose, all those kinds of sugars. And so it'll be sugar-free, and then you'll look and realize it's incredibly high in calories. And that's ultimately, when they say sugar-free, they mean something different than you understand it to be. Your exchanging of the currency of words is, you're not giving the words the same value or the same understanding. That's the idol of the marketplace. And the last of his idols is the idol of the theater. When you think about the theater, you have to think about like watching something on stage, and you accept the reality of what you see on stage, right? So if you're watching a movie, or you're watching a play, or you're watching a TV show, you understand rationally that what's on screen is a show. And you block out the idea of knowing that you know this actor from something else. Or when you go to a play, of looking around and realizing that just off stage there's stagehands working or other things like that. And the idea of the theater is this idea of, the metaphor of the theater is the idea of systems of thought, maybe ideologies or other kinds of things that automatically lead you down the wrong path. So, for example, there are ideas. When I was a grad student, we used to call these plug and chug papers, which is that you are assigned a topic, and so you take some theorists' ideas, you plug it into there, and you chug along, and you produce a paper based on that. And Bacon would really criticize that approach. What he would say is, but that's only valid if the underlying theory is right. If the underlying theory is wrong, that's not valid at all. And so one problem that Bacon points out is, look, you can have all the best data in the world. All of your reason can be right. But if you have a wrong underlying system of thought, a wrong underlying theory, a wrong underlying ideology, a wrong underlying philosophy, it's going to cause you to arrive at the wrong place. And so idols of the marketplace and idols of the theater are really problems that are more problems of our perception of how our ideas relate to other ideas around us. Now, like I said, these are not the only 4 logical fallacies, not by a long shot. And I'm sure if you asked Bacon, he would say, no. These are not the only ones. These are just 4 that he wants to focus on. But I do think those 4 idols of the mind are a really useful way, not just to think about science the way that he does, but thinking about all sorts of things in our own personal lives and in the way that we would read a text.